Well, hello, Lynn. How are you today?
I am fat, dumb, and happy, as the old saying goes. How about you, Miss Deb?
Uh, well, the first two, check, check. Um, it's always that same story, the happy part. Now, I mean,
Yeah.
pumpkin's head, but things are a little turbulent lately, aren't they? In our
Oh,
in our news cycle.
they absolutely are. But you know what? That's okay.
This is fine, flames.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
do. We need the flames today, really big.
We do. Well, for
Yes.
those of you who are just watching this as like your first video here, I never know when we start who's coming back and who's new. So please go ahead and like and share this video if you know there are other people who may be interested in the topic, and do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified when we make more content. Lynn Taylor is here, our Common Core diva. She drops in, I'm thinking at this point about once a month.
Yep.
With deep dives into things the rest of us are not likely to find in our daily surfing of the internet, even when we're looking for news about education, because most of the things you find for us show how our education system is being used
Hmm.
for the introduction of other things that don't have anything to do with reading, writing, arithmetic, but have a
Absolutely.
whole lot to do with how we are free or not free in America anymore. That's the simplest way I can put it. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Spot on, my dear. And, living in the state of North Carolina, we have probably the finest example of what can be thrown at education to prop up an agenda. You
Yep.
pick the agenda, and North Carolina is going, pick me, let me do it. Because once again, I found evidence where it was the first state or among the first states to say, oh yes, these adverse childhood experience surveys that are horrible if you've ever seen them, because it is all geared on the fact of if we eradicate every negative experience a child will ever have, which is almost impossible, by the way, because we're all wired a little differently. But across the board, this education agenda is everybody's not different, everybody's the same. So if we eliminate all negative things that could ever happen to a child, Deb, somehow we will have not only a more resilient person, but they'll know how to use grit, and they'll become a better person when they get to be grown and stay out of the prison system.
Yeah, see, this is a twisted inversion of the theory that people go to prison because they were traumatized as a child, like
Yes.
single cause fallacy. And there have been studies actually that show that is a false assumption. That,
Right.
while there is a high correlation, you can also find a high correlation between criminal behavior and being, putting children in a bad situation. So a kid
Right.
who grows up around crime is more likely to commit crimes. It's not that they were just suffered a traumatic experience, because otherwise
Hmm.
other kids whose parents were not criminals, but they had some kind of trauma, then they would be showing up in prison too, and they're not. So
Right.
it just doesn't work like that, but they want you to believe that it does. They want you to
Hmm.
believe in root cause fallacy. There's always a root cause, and if we can go back, or we can get ahead of the root causes through a top-down control mechanism, then we can protect everyone from all harm. And there's just no evidence that that's possible. And
Right.
what's worse is if you've identified in many of these shows, they end up being iatrogenic. They cause the very problem that they set out allegedly to solve. And unfortunately, because we parents and taxpayers don't question these premises when they come up and they say, this is what we need to do to keep people out of prison, because we don't raise our hands and say, I'm sorry, but I, it's my understanding that grit and resilience, just like a strong muscle,
Hmm.
comes from actually being tested and working and a little bit of strain and stress, and then you get over it. So that grit doesn't come from never having experienced hardship. It comes from experiencing hardship and learning how to cope with hardship when it happens. It learns, falling down, getting back up. You're stronger than being anti-fragile, not just fragile. So we end up creating these thin-skinned, very fragile, very weak, mentally ill people who believe that life is supposed to be a bowl of cherries.
Well, not only that, but think about this. First of all, it is impossible to eradicate every negative thing that could ever happen to a child.
That's right.
We can certainly try to help walk beside them. But again, that's not the school's job. That's mom and dad's job. And if mom and dad are not capable of doing it, that's when you have maybe other family members. Maybe you have someone from professional mental health profession that can say, hey, wait a minute, we've got someone who can walk alongside you. But for the school to go, yes, let's use the school to do it. And the reason why it goes back to that global agenda, and I mean from the United Nations, that schools were picked on purpose because it was the best way to reach the largest number of people at once with whatever it is. This just happens to be, negative experiences. And the list can include, being harmed at home, maybe someone's being abusive to you. Or, and this was on the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey or test or assessment, whatever you want to call it. Do mom and dad take you to church when you don't want to go? Do mom and dad drink around you? Do they do drugs around you? Well, Deb, this is not so much about the child. It's about what are mom and dad doing? Because if mom and dad are not doing what the government thinks, well, then there's another door for the government to come in and say, well, this is how you should parent. And we have the checklist for you to do it, because on your own, you're proving that you're too stupid to think your way out of a paper bag. Well, I can see where there would need to be some mentoring for the parents, but when you're taking this and making it about the child, but you're using the parent to separate the child and the parent to break up the family so that they can fit into this supposed saving pipeline to prison network, it gets very, very sticky and convoluted. But let's think about this. If you only groom the positive emotions, okay, you don't learn how to deal with any criticism. You don't learn how to deal with any hardships. This goes back to the movement where everyone had to have a ribbon because their self-esteem would be damaged if there were only first and second places. This is why you've seen some school systems get rid of valedictorian and salutatorian, because after all, we can't rank classmates because Joe Blow over here didn't get recognized for all the hard work that he did, or Susie Sunshine over here didn't get recognized for all the hard work that she did. Now, you brought up a very good point about the sensitivity of everyone. This is a book that's just been written out at your public library. And if you can't see it, it says Social Justice for the Sensitive Soul. And the whole premise of the book, my dear, is that you've been groomed in the changes for attitudes, values, and beliefs that the agenda wants you to. You've graduated or you've gone to work, and now it's your turn to bring social justice to fruition. Because after all, if you don't, someone else is going to do it and you won't get recognized.
This is the most insane. I brought up, I want to show this. I know we have so much to cover, but I really, because I wasn't aware of this book, Lynn. And here, audience, y'all have to see this. Okay. I pulled it up from here, not Amazon, because I want to see what they say about their own book. If you can get it at all these places for a mere $27. It's funny how the communists always charge so much for their books. Yeah. A timely, delightful, readable, and much needed book. Social justice work, we often assume, is raised voices and raised fists. It requires leading, advocating, fighting, and and organizing wherever it takes place in the streets, slums, villages, inner cities, halls of political power, and more. But what does social justice work look like for those of us who don't feel comfortable battling in the trenches? Sensitive souls, including those who consider themselves highly emotional, empathic, or introverted, have much to contribute to bringing about a more just and equitable world. Such individuals are wise, thoughtful, and conscientious. They feel more deeply and see things that others don't. We need their contributions, yet sustaining justice work can be particularly challenging for the sensitive, and it requires a deep level of self-awareness, intentionality, and care. Oh my God.
The author has worked at several nonprofit organizations, Deb. She has worked with faith-based groups. She has worked with social enterprises. Her husband just happens to be the founder and CEO of one called D.Light. And, it's just absolutely so full of the DEI movement in this book as well. So here's what I'm going to suggest, because we have so many notes just in this book. Let's save that for our next deep dive. Okay.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to
go
show
into
this to
But
people
yeah,
because, wow.
but look at all the notes I have.
I bless you for reading it.
Well,
You actually read it?
Oh, honey, I need some brain bleach after this. No, all I did not read it. I didn't have the stomach. What I did do was I started at the index and I found all the connecting dots. And so I've got page numbers and excerpts, and I've got, like, here, the 4 main goals of social justice. Well, if you go back and you look at the pioneers of peaceful social justice, like the Greensboro sit-in, okay?
Yeah.
They were using social justice, but they were using it from the way of using the legal system, not abusing the legal system like a lot of the social justice that we see today. Clarence Henderson lives here in North Carolina. He is one of those pioneers. And I did an interview with him, and he said, look, the social justice that we're seeing now is the militant bully attitude that my fellow brothers, if you will, and I said we weren't going to use it because that would get us nowhere. But by sitting in at that lunch counter, they made such a powerful statement, Deb, that to this day, when people see that picture, they know change was made, but it wasn't done with fists in the air and a bully pulpit of, you have to join social justice because if you don't, blah, 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 which is what this book is full of.
That is called bullying. I mean, I've taken to just calling it cry bullying.
Yeah, absolutely. So next time that we do our deep dive,
we have to do that. We have to do that.
Well, I stumbled upon it at the library. I was doing research for something else, and I knew our show was coming up, and I saw that, and I'm like, I have to get that. So, but anyway, moving on.
Moving right along.
Okay, so what in the world? You're probably listening going, well, okay, what in the world are these ladies talking about? Well, recently, the U.S. Department of Education had a webinar, Deb, and it was all about this, keeping students through social justice partnerships with your, not just your local school district, but your local court system. And in this webinar, I kid you not, there's I think I put it in with the resources for everyone, which there are going to be plenty of them. But this was keeping students in school safe through school justice partnerships. Now, the slides are like 62 slides long. You've got Bernadine Futrell. She's with the U.S. Department of Education. Then you have Liz Ryan from the Department of Justice at the federal level. Then you have Ellen Galinsky from Families and Work Institute. And then from the good old state of North Carolina, we got a good old judge, Jay Cockring. He's the chief district judge for the Fifth Circuit in North Carolina. He has been championed, Deb, as such a mover and shaker in the court system using education to help steer kids so that they don't end up in prison and be part of that prison to school pipeline that we're so told that is just so full of ill that this is the only way we can solve it. No, it's not.
Wow. This is the only way.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
Right. There's no other way. Now, one of these yahoos goes into brain development and how
brain development.
Yeah. When you get the webinar, you can go and download the slides. You want to look at slides 27 through 30, and then go look at slide number 34.
So this is the presentation or a video?
Yeah, that's the let's see, that is the video, but it should have in the resources for you, Deb, the slide deck.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you can't access it right now,
let me see.
Yeah,
this I'm looking for. I have all this other stuff, but I don't know. I'll have to take a look at the slide.
I thought I included it, but that's okay.
Yeah. But it's all right.
Yeah, but on the video, if you look at the timestamps 405 to 521, I've got some of those written down for you in the email. We've got 405 to 521. So
this one. Do you want me to play it?
Yeah, if you would. We don't have to play all of them, but just enough to give the audience a taste of what this webinar was stacking the deck for.
Just all I'm going to need you to do is tell me basically when to stop.
Okay, so we're starting at 405, and then we're going to stop at 521.
Okay.
I'm the Assistant Secretary here at the U.S. Department of Education, and I have the honor of leading our Equity Action Plan, as well as our discretionary grant programs under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Today's webinar is an example and a reflection of the U.S. Department of Education's commitment to build upon the call to action from President Joe Biden on his first day in office when he signed the executive order to advance racial equity and support for underserved communities through federal government. This executive order established that the federal government would pursue a comprehensive approach to advancing equity for all, and that's what this webinar is about. And we know that partnerships make us stronger. In fact, we know that when the whole community comes together, individuals are stronger, families are stronger, schools are stronger, and our nation is stronger. At the Department of Education, we launched early in the Biden administration the National Partnership for Student Success as a call to action for every adult, every community to wrap around and provide support for every student. In addition, we also provide various federal funding to support such partnerships, including the school justice partnerships. Quite simple, our goal is to support more efforts to partner to come together, because we know when we come together, instead of on our own, that we can do more when it comes to impacting children and their families. One of the opportunities that we're very familiar with is our Title I programs that really provide tremendous latitude for districts to provide support in terms of how they use Title I funds to improve their educational programs. One of the approaches that I've taken in this role.
Wow.
Okay, Title I funding under the Every Student Succeeds Act shifted from per pupil need to whole school. For what? Universal screening. For what? Behavior interventions and multi-tier support. In other words, the social and emotional manipulation of attitudes, values, and beliefs. That's what it is. And how many times did you hear the word equity?
Actually, the thing that stood out to me the most was I was listening very closely for meaning.
Okay.
And with what they do so well in these government agencies or whatever is they make you think, the way they string words together, it makes you think they're saying something.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're saying something consequential, or they're explaining how something's going to work. And in fact, they don't. They speak in platitudes. They say things like, when we come together, we can do more to positively impact the children's lives. But nobody, and so people go, yeah, I want to have a positive impact. They don't stop and take things apart and say, okay, who's we? What does do more look like? And what are we doing now that's insufficient? And why do we need to spend more money? Because, hey, we're spending almost $1 trillion as it is. So you haven't yet made the case for me that this is necessary. All you've said, like yes, we know you're part of the Biden administration because you work for this Department of Education's administration, but you're talking about, the commitment for equity for all. Well, you haven't actually proved that in the past 3.5 years, that commitment has resulted in any positive anything. In fact, most of us would argue there have been a lot of negative things we've seen in school that have gotten worse that we would argue, get tied back to your Equity for All program. But more importantly, you haven't made an affirmative case for it. You're part of the government. You're talking about money, grants, coming together, partnerships. These kind of things all sound really good. But parents, when you're listening to this, you need to stop and go, hang on a second. You haven't sold me. You've got me in the car and driving off the lot, and we haven't even discussed whether I need a car.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. They're used car salesmen who talk in all these fancy terms and get you feeling like, we care. Look at her face. Look at her smile. Look at her. Oh, I'm so excited and pleased. And we're there for the families and the communities. And we do the community. And nobody questions the premise that government is not part of your community. The state is not part of your community. It has no proper place helping you organize your survival beyond protecting you from foes, like literally, and protecting your rights. It is not your mommy, your daddy, or anybody who should be involved in your community. That is your sovereign right to decide who that's going to be for you and your children. And they just gloss right over that. Like, we are making communities, like you all are sitting there in your towns and cities going, oh my goodness, if only we could come together. If only we could find a way all by ourselves to work together and solve our problems as individuals. Oh my, I wonder how we could do that. Oh, are you going to come and do it for us, government, and pick and choose the people that will do it for us and help us with that? Oh God, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it smacks also of the adage that Hillary Clinton came up with, and that was,
village.
It takes a village. But, let's not gloss over Trump's administration, because his administration, under the leadership of Betsy DeVos, started a lot of this DEI garbage and started a lot of this social and emotional. Oh, yes, the government has to incorporate that, because go back and look at the Department of Education's archived resources. And DeVos was leading the charge when it came to how to use Title I funding to take advantage of this universal screening, because we have to early identify all those problem children, Deb. Yep. So that we can get them in on the drugs. We can get them in on the interventions. And my problem with this is, what if I just happen to be a normal kid having a bad day? That's not allowed. That assessment is going to pigeonhole me for the rest of my life.
Lynne.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not allowed to have bad days on the government's watch.
Oh,
it's not permitted, unless it's okay to have a bad day. In fact, it's okay to take a mental health day off if the source of your bad day is somebody who disagrees with you.
Okay, then.
And you agree with them. So, like, if you first requirement, you agree with the state. Okay, so you're already a protected person. And number 2 is somebody else is challenging you. Well, that is too big a burden. You can take the day off.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like something that's right out of this book, but we'll chase that for later. I know. But
somebody called me a communist on social media, and I'm very sensitive, and I can't handle it. It's like,
well, you know what? We could label each other, but until we really personally know each other, I mean, you and I work together. We've worked together enough that we have a good idea of values and things like that. But even if we didn't agree on everything, we know enough and are mature enough to respect those differences, but still find a way to work together, because it's not about us. It's not about our egos. It's about helping inform parents so they can protect their families. I didn't get in this to become famous. I didn't get into this to have fun. I got into this to do the dirty work that nobody else wanted to do. But we have to have it, because if we don't, we can't stand against a system that's against us, because we don't know what we'll be fighting, because we don't know.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, let's move on. Okay.
Next.
Under the webinar resources, if you'll go back to that list, you're going to see a website called Second Step.
Oh,
Now,
here, I got it.
Yeah, Second Step.
Hang on a second. This one.
Yeah. Second Step is a horrible social and emotional manipulator. Okay. It absolutely is. And the reason I know this is because our friend Lisa Logan got together with another Utah mom, and they spent over 30 hours looking at the resources for Second Step, which are almost impossible to find. You cannot really just do like I've done before and go to a website and download a sample. No, this is all online. And if you want to see how Second Step works, you have to register for a demonstration, Deb, that they will walk you through, because again, you can't think for yourself when you see a sample or you read a sample. No, you have to have guidance to coach you. Right. So anyway, this is a quote from what Lisa and her friend Stacy did. Quote, "Parents are not a part of the child support system." That should be your first bell ringer right there. Parents are not a part of the child support system. Almost always, when talking about whom the students can go to for support and encouragement when facing challenges, their interests, their goals, the parents are either mentioned last behind teachers, friends, mentors, counselors, advisors, administrators, other students, a study group, a band, or some sign of community, or not at all. Sometimes parents are even cast in the most negative light as an example of a possible roadblock when it comes to your student's future. Now, let's remember, these students are these people's children.
Yep.
Okay. The introductory video in the 8th grade curriculum shows a vigil after a school shooting and a Black Lives Matter protest. The narrator says that parents, the parents that the students are facing today, they're part of the problem. And the entire curriculum starts out by suggesting that the parents just don't know or even understand what's going on. So how in the world could they help their own children? Excuse me, if I'm going through something as horrible as some of this stuff that's being mentioned, I don't want anyone but my parents, because I know they know me better than the school system, better than the administrator, better than even my other friends. But that's not how parents are being cast through this Second Step program.
Well, I would like to say something, because inevitably there'll be somebody in the audience saying, "Oh, well, that's you because you're a good parent," or "That's you because you had good parents." Let me just say something.
Sure.
Even if, let's give y'all your argument. Anybody naysayers out there would say, "But some kids really don't trust their parents and their parents are dysfunctional and emotionally immature." And blah, blah. Yeah, that does happen. But you know what? It's still, we live in the United States of America where people are innocent until proven guilty, where there is the presumption of that separation. And we don't just look at a kid who's suffering and step in instead of the parents on the assumption that because the kid is at the school, it's our job now. You don't do that. If you have specific evidence that those parents are the kind of people who that kid literally can't go to, then you take that specific evidence on a case-by-case basis and you deal with it. That's why we have social services, I thought. But what they've done now is they've generalized to, because some kids have that, like some people got cancer, let's give everybody chemotherapy. No. And even if the parent is less than perfect at dealing with some of this stuff, it is in the child's best interest to pull the parents in first, because that kid goes home. That kid
Yeah.
doesn't live at the school, and no, I'm not making an argument that they should, but that kid wants a relationship. Even abused kids want relationships with their parents.
Well,
They
sure
need
they do.
the help to bring that together. The last thing they want or need, and in fact, it inhibits their likelihood of coming forward when they have a problem, is they do not want to be forcibly separated from their homes.
Right.
They don't. And you can actually cause kids to end up running away. You can cause kids to harm themselves when you seek to separate them from their parents, because then they feel truly unmoored and lost, even if their parents are less than perfect. So I had to get that out because I'm really
Absolutely.
getting tired of this notion that, they make the argument that, well, that's you, or you guys are good parents, or you had good parents. Like, first of all, I didn't. But let me tell you something, because I didn't, because I had some things go wrong in my life, I am eternally grateful that the people who only spent, 7, 8 hours a day with me, and not consecutively, an hour here, an hour there, whatever, were not trying to get all up in my business about what was going on at home, that I was able to have some distance from that. I could deal with what I need to deal with at school, what I need to deal with at home. And that when I wanted to deal with it with more help than that, I had people to go to. I found those, I made my village, even as a
Yeah.
kid. But we're not, and that's part of my strength now. Part of my strength as an adult, which these kids are not learning, is
Mhm.
they're not learning that self-efficacy. They're not learning that, you know what, I need to speak up when I need help. I need to go to my friends. I need to find my grandma. I need to go to my aunt. I need to go to my cousin or my neighbor across the street or whatever. They're not learning how to build community because they're passively on the receiving end of what's just handed to them, which may not
Right.
be appropriate.
Right. Now, the visual you're seeing says high school. I want you to understand this starts in elementary school
Yes, it
and
does.
has gone over to high school. Now, I have provided for you resources where you'll get the PDFs, and I'm looking at the 8th grade second step. This was the PDF. I think it was the first attachment I sent you, Deb. But it says here, the purpose of this document is to give a brief summary of the glaring concerns that we as parents had while we were reviewing the second step. This is Lisa and Stacy's work, okay?
Okay, so this is their work.
Yes, this is their work.
And
You
it was the
see,
PDF.
yes, it says 8th grade.
Okay, let me go find it.
Yeah,
Don't worry,
yeah.
keep talking. Keep talking.
Okay,
I got it.
but it says here bullying, harassment, particularly through a racial lens. When second step discusses bullying, harassment, taunting, power and privilege, that sort of thing, this is one of the 3 factors that contribute to this kind of behavior. Second step asserts that sometimes people will experience privilege based on race and gender, and also lists that power and privilege are a reason for bullying. These ideas are associated with the critical race theory, and considering that white students are almost always portrayed in the role of the aggressor in these lessons, this suggests that they are the race with more power and privilege than any other student of color. In general, race is the primary factor that second step focuses their bullying lessons on. So instead of this SEL program focusing on equity or equality in the classroom, they instead want to, while it doesn't, let's see. So instead of this SAL program focusing on unity to achieve equality in the classroom, they instead want to achieve equity by resurrecting racism and pushing narratives that white power and white privilege are bad. It goes on to tell you that besides race, second step heavily focuses on all the gay and transgender issues when discussing bullying and harassment. These lessons do not simply list these as areas that students are bullied. Rather, these reasons are prioritized over all the other lessons. The program will encourage students to accept these ideologies to the point that they're willing to defend them. Social justice. All right. This is through the activism. This is the last part I'm going to read. Throughout the second step 8th grade curriculum, there are phrases and lessons that are designed to spur students to rally for particular causes. Students are asked to create a plan for disrupting factors or choose a disruption strategy as a way of challenging and changing attitudes, beliefs, traditions, or practices that will make bullying and harassment acceptable.
I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
for not even just you, the audience in general.
Okay.
Why is it even at all acceptable for the school to decide what American culture should be, what the dominant American thoughts and belief systems should be, and how is that different from a violation of the Establishment Clause? Everything you just read, in my personal opinion, I'm not a lawyer, but
Right.
I can read, and our founders were very clear on this, that our laws, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights should be clear enough that your average person, the farmer, whatever, can read it and understand it so they can protect their rights. And as I read my rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, this is seeking to establish what is essentially a faith-based system. There is no evidence whatsoever that any of this is even real. Remember, we're talking about this oppression and, like all this attitude. These are all unseen things. You can't measure this. You can't decide, have we gotten better? Are we worse? Is it good? Is it bad? There is nothing scientific about any of this. This is their belief system, their worldview. How is this not the exact same thing as if they came in and said, through second step, eighth grade curriculum, our phrases and less throughout, our phrases designed to help students to support Christian ethic. Students are asked to create a plan for creating God's kingdom on earth. I mean, how is it any different? It's not any different. Disrupting factors, disrupting what? Who elected you? Who decided that you have the authority at all to tell my child what my child's social responsibilities are on this planet? That is their religion. That is my job as a parent to tell them whether they do or don't or whatever have any kind of obligations outside of themselves. It is certainly not the job of the state to do.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's the next attachment I have for you. This was from Corpus Christi Independent School District. Okay.
I get it.
All right.
Oh, wait. Oh, I see what happened. Okay, hold on. Corpus Christi.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Is this the EDDO approved thing?
Yes, I think so.
Elementary's Office of Elementary. Nope. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry. Let me see, Deb. It's going to be
Exposing second step video.
ED. Okay. No, this is the.
Oh, I got it. I got you.
Got it.
Okay, here it is.
There you
Yeah.
Go. But I want folks
I was looking for another attachment.
No, that's okay. I want folks to see Corpus Christi Independent School District pays second step over $70,000 for this SEL curriculum. And it refuses to provide a written copy for the school district to even see it.
That's right.
Now you're going to go and you're going to use over $70,000 of taxpayer money and not provide evidence of what you're teaching or what's in the curriculum. It's going to be sight unseen, and I'm going to shell out over 70. This is just one school district, Deb. One school district. It tells you here, Parents Defending Education submitted public records request for the Corpus Christi Independent School District seeking copies of the lessons, which they have the right to do.
Yes,
from
they
the
do.
district's social and emotional learning curriculum second step with contracts or invoices, something to show what we just got for over $70,000. The school rejected the request.
What?
Stating, the school district denied the Parents Defending Education request because they stated that the lesson plans are protected by copyright and not disclosed to the district. So the district just spent over $70,000. They can't tell you what's in it because they don't even know what's in it. But hey, it's okay to throw at your children.
Well, they're also wrong because the parents looking at the curriculum, I mean, copyright, we look at things that are copyright. This book is copyrighted. Look, I'm looking at it. Oh my God, I'm looking at copyrighted material, you
We got
guys.
to look at the
Wow.
Common Core state standards, which are copyrighted. We
This
got
is
to look at those.
Oh my God, this book is copyrighted. I guess I should look at it up, express permission from the. It's not, copyright doesn't prevent you from looking at things. It prevents you from recreating them, like sort of repurposing them for money. For money, you have the copyrights, which basically means it's your property. It doesn't mean that it can't be looked at within the confines of that audience. So the parents are the audience in that school. It's their money paying for it. They are actually factually incorrect. That is not how copyright law works. So anybody telling you this, you need to challenge this. You need to get a lawyer who's a specialist in intellectual property and go wag their finger at them, because I'm sorry, that's not how copyright looks. You can't look at something. At a minimum, they have to give you permission to come in and look at it there. And if they tell you, well, you can't take pictures of it and this and that, say like, I'll tell you what, if you find out that I've disseminated this publicly for money, then y'all can sue me, or you can, come at me for damages. But I'm taking pictures because I need to show this to my husband, my friends, etc. We're not making any money doing this. We're just sharing information. Like if I take this book and I pass it all around my 25 friends and they all want to look at it,
Yeah.
that's my business to do.
Well, and that's your right to do it. It's, freedom of choice.
It's absolutely ridiculous for them to say you can't take a picture of it, you can't look at it, you're not going looking to sell it.
Well, this throws that accountability right out the window, because how can you be accountable when you can't even see what it is? But I want us to go to this is under number 3 in our resources, Deb. I want us to see the parent company for second step, because y'all need to see what kind of mess this is in. We want to go to the history link.
Okay.
And it will tell you, when you first see this, you'll see Committee for Children. That's the parent company. Look at this shiny, happy little face. And what do you see underneath? Grassroots effort for global nonprofit. All right. But it tells you this particular organization has been around since 1979. Oh, my Lord. That was the same year the U.S. Department of Education was formed under President Jimmy Carter. But it tells you here why it was formed. Its sole purpose when it started was to help the victims of child sexual abuse.
Well, you see, once you form a nonprofit,
yeah,
and you realize there's a lot of money to be made and political influence to be had through your nonprofit, you kind of expand your scope and you want to expand your influence, and especially you attach the word global to it.
Well, here's the thing. All right, this is supposed to help victims of child sexual abuse. Okay. I totally support helping children who have been abused in this most horrible way. But if you look at some of the predators, they fit right into the group that is being used by Second Step to say, oh, yes, you have to go out and socially fight for justice for this particular group. Now, let me clarify. I'm not saying everyone who's in that group is a child predator, but it has been proven how many in that particular group have become teachers or school administrators and have gone on to harm children. So how is it that I'm going to start my organization off protecting them, and then here I am, fast forward to 2024, and I'm pumping out curriculum that not only can the parents not see, but is teaching militant behavior for social justice, to stand up for these very people who have been known and proven to be abusers.
Wow.
Makes no sense to me. Anyway, you can scroll through the history for yourself. And let me say this. I'm not picking on the gay transgenders. I'm absolutely not. I'm pointing out that we even have straight people who are abusing our children. I don't care what sexuality they are. If they're abusing children, they have no place being around your children.
Well, this right here, Castle awards high marks to our second step program. If you get a Castle stamp on you, you're already.
Yeah, but did you see the Department of Education stamp too? Yeah, that's right before Castle. So, oh yes, let's just go ahead and use your taxpayer dollars to fund garbage you never thought you were supporting. That's just the history. Okay. If you
Well,
look
it just kills me. This is 23 years ago
yeah.
that they won an award for a curriculum for safe and drug-free schools. Are our schools safe and drug-free?
Oh, no, but they
Okay.
never were.
But yeah, so we're handing out money, we're handing out awards, we're handing out things for like, this is a wonderful program to solve a problem that is only getting worse since we spent the money on the program. At what point do we decide that we have spent a whole lot of money on not really any results? Things have gotten worse, and we would have been at least richer. At least we would have more money in our pockets as parents if we hadn't spent all this money. We would have lower debt. Our kids would not be inheriting all this debt. They would actually be able to graduate from high school and go out into a world where they could find jobs without begging and pleading. They could, maybe buy a home someday in their lives. And people listening might say, "Oh, Deb, aren't you stretching it a bit to connect this to like all these other problems?" No, I'm really not. I'm really not, because you know what? A school, I'm not for public schools in the first place, but let's say they could be good if they just focused on teaching the basics and they did that even halfway decently, we would be miles ahead of where they are. But you keep layering more and more stuff that is actually parenting on top of what they're supposed to do with teaching. And remember, parents tell me all the time, "But I have to send my kids to school because I don't know how to teach them." Well, I have news for you. Neither do they. And that's why instead they've chosen to parent your children, because apparently it's easier to flub at that job and make it look like you're trying than it is to pretend you know how to teach math.
Absolutely. Well, if you'll go to the other tab, the for Community for Children, that was their main website. I want you to see what's at the top. Grow kinder. Oh, we're going back to those sensitive little people. Oh my
Well, the
goodness.
assumption is we are not kind.
Yes, we're all a bunch of you know what's. Anyway, so SEL, thriving children, thriving families, and thriving communities. Oh, that village idiot is really looking for their people.
Thriving.
Ah,
Thriving.
yes.
What does thriving mean, Lynn?
Well, I guess it means that everything is going according to plan. But again, whose plan? And what are they basing the plan on? And it goes on to tell you, oh my goodness, your emergency COVID money is about to run out. So you got to hurry up and use what's left of the funding, Deb, because, oh my gosh, you wouldn't want to be caught with drawers down.
Well, isn't this a little bit of a conflict of interest over here?
Oh, yes.
It's like, hi, go get more taxpayer money so you can buy our stuff.
Which you can't look at. You can't look at it, Deb. I'm sorry. It'll blind you. Oh,
wow.
Okay.
Okay, wow.
Now, the second attachment, this is the EDDO. This was the joint letter that was sent out by not only the Department of Education, but the Department of Justice for teachers and concerned stakeholders to attend this webinar about school partnerships and keeping children safe. Okay. Dear colleague, the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Elementary and Secondary Education and the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention invite you to join us for the upcoming Lessons from the Field webinar on school/justice partnerships. Oh, goody. They're working together. I want you to understand that both the Department of Justice and the Department of Education are unconstitutional, but yet our taxpayer dollars are using these. So yes, we have these two groups going, oh, come join us. Now it gives you a list of the speakers, and then it goes on to tell you that the school justice partnerships emerged in the 1990s, Deb, as districts saw a dramatic increase in the number of young people who were referred to courts by school-based law enforcement officers, now called SROs, I believe it is, largely due to the zero tolerance policies.
Wow.
Now, it goes on to tell you, the judge, the good old boy from North Carolina, helped to develop and implement school justice partnerships as an alternative approach that would reduce the number of students referred into the courts for classroom behavior issues. Ooh, multi-tier support system, anyone? To ensure a better understanding that if and when a young person should be referred to a court for school-based behavior. That goes back to these universal screenings. This goes back to the fact of, if you look at the memorandums of understanding that every student succeeds at created, to have a data pipeline between a school and a police officer or a sheriff's office. This is violating not only your child's right to privacy, but your family right to privacy. And someone in the audience is going to go, we got FERPA, the Family Education Right to Privacy Act. Okay, that one, my dears, was gutted under President Obama. It removed the protection that would keep the data safe on your child and your family. But that ceased to exist under an executive order that Obama issued to gut FERPA. It's never been repealed. Trump never did it. He said he was going to stop the data rape, is what I call it, of our students. He called it something else, data collection.
Well, I just thought that y'all could just see this little worm of a person in North Carolina. There he is, Justice Julius Corponing. He's judge.
Oh, but Deb, he's
special. He's so special.
Oh, yes, because the court system. Oh, I want you to know he's the only judge in that area, and he's run unopposed for years because
32 years.
Because everyone is convinced that he's so great, nobody wants to run against him.
Right?
Is that really the true American voting system?
No. And what kills me once again is that I got to get this back up for you. Hold on. Sure. What kills me is people in North Carolina, well, actually people all around the country, still to this day hang their little hopes on the letter R. They're just like, but it's one of the, like you said, it's a good old boy, or it's somebody who's a Republican, or it's somebody in the South. Oh, it's in a red state. Oh, it's, they have all these illusions that every single person pushing this stuff right now is one of those hardened left-wing communists. And no, a lot of them are. BS. No, I'm sorry. I hate to burst your little bubble, but not only is that not true, but some of the worst offenders are on the so-called right. It doesn't really have anything to do with party, does it, Lynne? It really has to do with your philosophy of the Constitution.
It absolutely does. And how many, Trump and Biden included, will still call us a democracy when we are a constitutional republic?
Or will say that the public school system is a great institution. It's a wonderful, important American institution that we just have to reform. We just have to tinker around the edges and just fix a little bit. No, it's not a suffocating, never-ending octopus-like thing that's squeezing us until we have no individual liberty anymore at all. No. It's not a giant money thought. What?
Yeah. Independent thought.
Right. Yeah. Oh, they're teaching critical thinking, Lynne.
Yes, I know.
They're critical thinking.
The third attachment that I really want folks to see this. This is the baby that our
oopsie. Hold on. Judge. Let me just stop this till I find it. Hold on. Okay. Which one?
It's the third one. It's
Social Justice Partnership.
Yeah. I want folks to see this. This is the document that this judge has put together. Okay. Now, it's being used as a prototype for the rest of the nation. So don't think, well, if I'm listening and I don't live in North Carolina, this isn't going to touch me, because we're going to show you not only this that's being used as a model for the nation. Otherwise, why in the world would he have been on the webinar that the U.S. Department of Education has?
This is so creepy, Soviet level.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Yeah. Look at this. The goals. The SJP, or School Justice Partnership, is a group of community stakeholders from schools, law enforcement, and the court system who develop and implement effective strategies to address student misconduct within the school system and the community rather than referring them to the local court system. That's great, but you're not defining how you're doing it, okay? It goes on to tell you that it was implemented through raise the age legislation. Well, there's one smoking gun for you to go look at, and that is, what is your state's legislative body doing about this sort of thing? It goes on to tell you that it's supposed to keep kids in school, Deb, and out of the court. Now, here's the problem.
Are those the only two choices? Those are the only two choices.
Those are the only two choices. Now, it goes on to tell you even more, and we're not going to belabor your intelligence because you can go back and you can read for yourself. We don't want to tell you what to think because we wouldn't be any better than the rest of them. We want you to see the stuff, make up your own minds. But the point that I'm trying to bring up is that the reason why this should be a horrible thing is because, and I've got it for the section in the resources for the audience to do their own due diligence and look for themselves. And that is, I did a short video on seeing a documentary that was centered on using partnerships. The North Carolina Council of Churches, as well as the North Carolina law enforcement groups, were in full support of this. And it was all about using the ACEs to redesign how education is supposed to be taught so that we would be able to have that responsible citizen so that by the time they came out of school, they would never have any problems whatsoever. Now, where this was played out was they used San Francisco as the model on this particular documentary that I'm talking about. They used San Francisco as the model city for how this sort of ACEs program was supposed to work. We groom them through education. They're able to stand on their own. How, I don't know, because they've never had anything hard happen to them. Do you want to know? This surfaced also in the state of Oregon. I think it was Oregon. No, it was Washington. And one of my warrior friends out in Washington said, do you want to know how well this went? We went from a city that was in the black as far as our budget to we now have the worst unemployment rate. We have the most people out of jobs. They can't be reskilled for anything. And our debt is now millions of dollars over what we, the people, as taxpayers can support. That's how great this system works. But yet here we have a Yahoo from North Carolina championing it. And then you have a U.S. Department that's going, oh, yes, this has worked so well. Let's take it across the nation. Now, the one thing that I want people to see, this comes with memorandums of understanding. I pulled up the one, since Deb's show is based out of Charlotte, I pulled up the one from Mecklenburg County because that's where she lives.
Yes, you did. Let me go grab that.
Yeah, okay. Now, this is a memorandum between the school district, which would be CMS, Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools, and the local law enforcement. Whereas we recognize that all Mecklenburg County law enforcement agencies, the Charlotte Mecklenburg Board of Education, and the Office of the District Attorney, the Juvenile Justice, and the 26th Judicial District share responsibility for school safety and must work together with complementary policies and procedures to ensure a safe learning environment for the CMS students. Okay, first of all, policy is not law, but it's treated as law. I've described it on this show and others before. Law is concrete. That's the sidewalk you walk on. The policy, depending on what tree that you walk under, would be different. Different policies attach themselves to that law in the hopes that you will not know or recognize or even care that there's a difference between law and policy, but they're not the same. This goes on to tell you it's going to go into school climate. It's going to go into data mining. It's going to use open-ended algorithms to track and trace your children. And they're trotting this out. This is only one of the current memorandums of understanding. But if you look at the roadmap for North Carolina, by the time this is all said and done, Deb, all 100 counties in our state will have this. Now, if you don't live in North Carolina, watch for this. It's coming. It's already in place. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had this national webinar.
Yeah, you're going to need to go and do your own homework, y'all, into your own states and look for these things. And really, what you're essentially looking for is to see if you have, like, here's our state school justice partnerships. That's what
There
you're
you
looking
go.
for.
There you go.
And this shows you we've got blue is SJP implemented, and gray is in the planning phase. And y'all in your the white not filled in yet, please stay out of this. Like, you don't want this.
Yeah.
But obviously our largest counties, right? We've got what you call it, Mecklenburg, Durham. These counties are already they're already
Now,
sunk.
let me give you this one quote. And this
Wake is in the planning phase.
Oh, yeah. Well, oh, gee. Okay. This is from the national. Okay. So this is where you can go and find your state. This is resource number 12, Deb. The National School Justice Partnership website is called School Justice Partnership. Here's a quote about the
Is this the one? Is this the one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Here's a quote. On October 24th, it should be in October, but they have their own grammatical error, and I just saw it.
Shocking.
Okay.
Grammatical errors in government-facing documents.
Okay, so in October 2014, the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges was awarded funding by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention from where? The U.S. Department of Justice, Deb, to support the School Justice Partnership Project. The purpose of the project was to enhance collaboration and coordination among schools, mental and behavioral health specialists, law enforcement, and juvenile justice officials to help students succeed in school and prevent negative outcomes in our youth and communities. Now, this particular partnership is also working with the Department of Education, as well as the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration from the good old U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which is also unconstitutional, to implement a multidisciplinary initiative to improve our school climates, respond early and appropriately to student mental health and behavioral needs, avoid referring students to law enforcement and juvenile justice as a disciplinary response, as well as to facilitate a proactive and supportive school reentry process for the rare instances when youth are involved. Now, what's wrong with that? It's not related to second. What's wrong with that is that there's another group out there called Navigate 360. This is also for the audience's due diligence. It's not mentioned in the webinar, but I knew it sounded familiar. They have a program that's called ALICE that law enforcement is supposed to use in response to school shootings. Guess where it came out of? Okay. I give you an article where I went in depth. And if you watch the video for how the ALICE training is supposed to work in schools, it teaches your children to be fearful. A victim is coming, and what do? You hide.
You mean a shooter is coming?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hide. Well, okay, I can understand to a point that logic, but when you look at what else is done, the fear management that they're trying to groom the students for and the teachers for is not to fight back. It's to surrender. How well is that going to work out if someone really wants to harm you?
Well, that's even secondary. The number one thing they're going for there is they want to amp up that fear to such a level that these kids go home and tell their parents to give their guns away. That's right. The parents really, want to do it for the children, and that they realize that to assuage their irrational level of fear about a statistically so unlikely to happen to you event that you probably get struck by lightning twice before it does, that they're begging their lawmakers to disarm them. That is the fear that they're trying to gin up. So this whole, like, all you can do is hide. There's nothing else you can do. You know, I said to my daughter when she was in 9th grade and she wanted to do a project where she was told she had to do a project for some kind of civics thing or whatever. And she wanted to do something about gun rights because they had all these gun walkout protests. And she wanted to come in and bring somebody in to teach the skills of dealing with active shooter that are not hiding, that have to do with, you know, that do include fighting back and other things. But she also had an idea that I thought was really pretty cool, which was to teach everyone in the class the haka dance. And I was like, what? And so then she shows me videos of people doing the haka dance. You know how intimidating that is? Like, it's, first of all, it's very, very loud. It makes a lot of noise and it's very intimidating. And so the theory being that if you're all silent and cowering in your classrooms, and this hunter, because remember, part of why they do this is they get off on power.
Yeah.
And so the idea was to psych out the shooter by having every classroom start being so loud, like, whoa, whoa, and like doing the haka dance and stomping their feet. And then even going so far as to like take the desks and turn the desks and like Roman Legion style.
Yeah.
And, you know, put them in front of them and like stack them up. Like, you know how they did with their shields in the Roman formation. They're like, you make a thing out of the desks in a desk or table situation, and then you'd go behind that and just make as much noise as humanly possible behind then the locked door, and disorient and scare the living daylights out of the shooter, such that they're just like, which room am I? I'm not going towards sitting ducks. I'm going towards people who might pick some stuff up and throw it at me.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of disruption that would be what we want.
Yeah.
But that's not what our social justice is teaching. But
Hiding isn't going to help you.
No, it really isn't. But, you know, Common Core has been teaching for years that our Second Amendment is something that needs to be done away with, because after all, it's guns that are the problem. No, when you look
crazy
at
people who are the problem.
It's people with an agenda. It is people who have it absolutely
Well, if you're talking specifically about shooters, I would actually argue that these kinds of programs that weaken our children's ability to cope with negative things, that take every last little insult and trauma and turn it into this like existential threat of your existence, whether it's the climate or a school shooter might come or your parents or somebody, that these kids cannot cope, and then they get so angry and frustrated that they externalize this and become either self-harming, or I'm gonna harm myself, but I'm gonna go out with a bang and take some other people with me. I think we're creating these people with these programs.
And I don't disagree. In fact, I have used that same not the same one, but I've used similar ones, because I'm sitting here. This is the problem with these ACEs, because if you totally prop up just the positive, when the negative happens, they're going to either implode or explode. And I think you're absolutely right. We have groomed this sort of thing to happen. Now, there's only going to be a couple more things. Everything else will be in the archives. Look at what Deb and I have been showing you. Look at all the other stuff that we didn't show you. I did do, if you will, a homework list for audience members, because, again, we want to show you what to look for, not just preach to you. But this is from number 10, the news that North Carolina was on track to be the nation's first ACE-infused court system. This was a news article that was put out in 2023.
Okay, so that's this one right here.
Yep. Look at this. North Carolina moves closer to creating nation's first ACEs-informed court system. And there sits our judge. Then you also have the district attorney of New Hanover County. You also have another chief justice, and then you have another judge. And these are all bigwigs in North Carolina.
This cannot be overstated. This is equity, you guys. This is a two-tier justice system. This is basically saying what we used to have in the United States of America of justice is blind. Justice is blind. If you are wronged, The judge is not going to look at the circumstances of the person who wronged you. They're not going to look at, oh, poor baby, this happened, that happened, and we're going to make a judgment call that you deserved it because you have more than they do or whatever, or they had a rough life. There's a law, and you don't get to find little ways around it by claiming that you had some, adverse condition in your experience, right? And adverse childhood experience. Now you're going to have defense attorneys and defendants waltzing their sorry little butts into court and going, well, I had to carjack that lady because I had a high ACE score and I didn't have a choice and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And this kind of a justice system is going to say, you person who got carjacked, scared out of your mind, maybe had a heart attack and ended up in the hospital or were just stranded in the snow or whatever. Too bad, so sad. They had a high ACE score. So you know what? We're going to put them in a little rehabilitation program, which by the way, you're going to pay for, and with your tax dollars. And we're going to do this and we're going to do that, because the most important thing is not justice for you. It's not making sure this person learns their lesson and doesn't go out there and reoffend and commit another act of aggression against another human. No, the most important thing is that they not go to jail.
Meanwhile, you're still out of a car.
Jail.
Yep. And meanwhile, you're still out of a car. But oh well, that's beside the point. This article goes on to tell you the first thing it does, transforms our healthcare system. Does that sound court related to you? Oh no, it does not. Transform healthcare. Next heading, educate teens about healthy relationships. Oh, good gosh. Then Safe Babies and other programs. I'm not going to. Go ahead.
Maybe I am just too old for any of this and I need to just go away. But do you really think that people get into abusive relationships that involve criminal behavior and criminal levels of abuse? Do you think that happens because they don't know? Because somebody didn't tell them, they weren't taught, they weren't educated about abusive relationships? Or do you think maybe it happened because they grew up around abusive situations or they are just a not very good person? And we don't want to talk about this in America. No, everybody's a blank slate. Everybody's born absolutely pristine and as they driven the snow. Nobody could possibly have any kind of violent tendencies or inclinations. There's no such thing as personality or IQ for that matter.
Well, supposedly under this system, there's no such thing as gender because it's a social construct. Sorry.
So, and apparently so is abuse, because not letting your child be mutilated by adults other than you, apparently that's abusive. But if a person who, commits a violent crime, had something adverse in their childhood, well, that's understandable.
Okay. The last thing I want folks to see, this will be under the due diligence part of the email. It's resource number 6.
Okay.
I want you to see this particular judge who's being heralded as the greatest thing since sliced bread when it comes to education and court systems.
Due diligence. Hold on.
Yeah, it's resource number 6. Should be down at the bottom of the email. I tried to number everything so that it was nice and easy.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Okay. I want you to see this.
It's just taking a minute to open for some reason.
And that's okay.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, dear Deb, look at this. The same judge who is just the greatest thing since sliced bread for education and justice. And what was he on? The task force for COVID. Should this give us a clue as to how stacked the deck is? Because whether you really believe that COVID is real or whether you believe that it's not, the fact that it removed so much of our freedom, some of those parameters are still in play. We're not near as free as we think we are. But you have yahoos like this who not only are restructuring our healthcare system, but now they're sitting here going, oh, goody, let me get on a task force. And the task force is appointed. We, the people, did not elect this task force. The governor threw this bunch together. You have court judges I don't see one healthcare worker on this. These were all magistrates and attorneys and trial clerks. And where were the healthcare people? This goes back to our laws. This goes back to legislation. So if you don't see it because you don't live in North Carolina, don't think it's not happening in your state, because we're showing you where to look. But everything's fine, isn't it, Deb? We're all still fat, dumb, and happy, aren't we?
People love this judge because he created a reunification program for children with their opioid addicted parents.
Well,
but he wants to tell the rest of us what our children need to be protected from us. Yeah. But yeah, okay.
Well, very quickly, everyone, when you get the show, you should have links to everything that Deb has, and then I have stuff for you as well. You'll get the webinar. You'll get all the things that were connected to it. You're going to get other resources. You're going to get access to the School Justice Partnership. You're going to get local as well as federal. You'll get to see the second step stuff we didn't have time to go over. Right. You'll get to have articles of mine of where Common Core was teaching that the Second Amendment is toxic, or how Alice really works, or what is really going on with the ACEs, and see how awful it actually is. You're going to get all kinds of resources. So yes, absolutely, use them. Look at what in the world is going on in your neighborhood, because I can guarantee you, with North Carolina being used as a model,
right?
If it's not already in the works, it's about to be.
Well, the thing, when it comes to the resources, I do want to add that I do try to put as many of them as I'm permitted to put in the description box. They limit my characters. So what I can do is I will be giving everybody all these links. I cannot promise you I will give you the link descriptions, only because I want you to have the links.
Sure, absolutely.
And so in order to save space, I may not be able to put all the exact descriptions of what you're getting. But usually with Lynne's links, if you read the link, it tells you what it is.
Yeah.
It's like right there. So I will I'll make sure you have all these. The only thing I also can't attach are PDFs.
That's fine.
But you know, you can get in touch with me, and if you need the PDFs. But generally speaking, if you look, anything that Lynne finds, you've found on the internet. This stuff isn't super hidden. So if you watch the show and you go to the part where you're like, I want to take a look at that Mecklenburg County thing, look it up, you'll find it. The problem is that most people aren't Lynne, and so they're not sitting home on the internet going, I'm gonna see what they're up to now. And that's why you have that's why we have her, is that's what she does do. And then she comes to me, and then I put it here, and you guys get to see it. And now you know what your homework is.
Yep, absolutely.
Or not. You could just decide that you agree with us, and then you have your marching orders, which is go and either get your kids out of these schools or start putting people up for public office who don't think this is a good idea. And good luck with that. Good luck finding them. Good luck finding them.
Yeah, go to the school board meetings and say, not on my watch. Because again, large portions of this, if not all of it, are on our taxpayer dollar.
$70,000, you pointed out. $70,000. Yeah,
that's just in one state. I don't know how much Mecklenburg is paying for their memorandum. But anyway, the point of it is that the system is stacked against us. But any of the resources, if you can't find them, you've done your own internet search and you can't find them, email me, info@commoncorediva.com, and I can point you to all of this, because I save all these emails for shows, so that if someone does need a resource and they just can't find it, then it's right there. So yes, absolutely. Email me.
info@commoncorediva.com, and you can get the other stuff. And do go check out her blog. I'm going to put the links to the specific blog articles that talk about this, but you can go there and find so many more things. And check out the rest of the playlist too. We have a whole playlist of Common Core Diva deep dives, and they are going to cover things you may, if you haven't watched all of these, they're news, and it's evergreen, because nothing that Lynne has uncovered is over. even if something that was established, let's say in like 1979, it's only worse now.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if she's brought me something in the last year, I promise you it's already worse. You need to know what's going on.
Absolutely. And so, you know what we're doing next time? We're
Next
doing,
time we're doing social
yeah.
justice for the sensitive soul. Do I dare read it also? Oh my God. I don't
Oh,
want to spend
honey,
money on
just
it.
get yourself a bar. No, I went to the local library. You can check
Oh
it
yeah, I
out
ain't
for
buying it.
free.
No way.
You can check it out for free because your taxpayer dollar paid for it. Ooh. All right,
All
Miss
right.
Deb. Thank
All
you
right.
so
Thank you
much.
so much. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.